The text message wasn't meant for me, but there it was, glowing on Rachel's phone screen like a neon sign advertising my stupidity. Can't wait to feel you again tonight, baby. Derek misses his lawyer goddess. I set the phone back on the kitchen counter exactly where I'd found it, next to her cold coffee and the divorce papers she didn't know I'd already prepared. 22 years of marriage, and this is how it ends, with a cheating wife who thinks I'm too dumb to notice her late nights at the office. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Jack Mason. I'm 40 years old, and until this morning, I thought I was happily married to the smartest woman I'd ever met. Turns out I was half right. Rachel is brilliant. Brilliant enough to play me for a fool while she screwed her way up the corporate ladder at Hartwell, Knox & Associates. I'm not some naive suburban husband who fixes leaky faucets and watches football on weekends. I spent 12 years in Delta Force before transitioning to private security consulting. I've tracked terrorists through Afghan mountains and corporate spies through Manhattan boardrooms. But somehow, I missed the signs that my own wife was cheating on me with Derek Holt, the golden boy partner at her law firm. The irony would be funny if it didn't make me want to punch a hole through the wall. Rachel walked into the kitchen wearing her power suit and that fake smile she reserves for people she thinks are beneath her. "Morning, honey. I'll be late again tonight. Big case." "Which case?" I asked, stirring my coffee and watching her face. "The Morrison acquisition. Very complicated." She grabbed her phone without checking it. "Derek and I need to review the contracts." "Derek." I let his name hang in the air like smoke. "Seems like you two have been working closely lately." Her laugh sounded forced. "He's the lead partner, Jack. Of course we work closely." I wanted to throw her phone at the wall and watch it shatter. Instead, I smiled. "Have a great day at work, sweetheart." She kissed my cheek, and I smelled his cologne on her skin. Expensive stuff. The kind of scent a man wears when he thinks he's untouchable. After Rachel left, I sat in my kitchen for exactly 10 minutes drinking coffee and planning my next move. I'm not the kind of man who falls apart when life kicks him in the teeth. I'm the kind who kicks back harder. My phone buzzed. Text from my brother Sam. "Emma's soccer game is Saturday. You coming?" Emma is Sam's 8-year-old daughter, my niece, and probably the only person in my family who still thinks I'm a hero. Sam runs a struggling construction business and barely makes ends meet, but he's a good father and a better man than I've been lately. I texted back, "Wouldn't miss it." At least someone in my life wasn't lying to me. I spent the morning researching Derek Holt, social media, professional profiles, property records, the digital footprint of a man who thought he was clever. Derek lived in a penthouse downtown, drove a BMW, and had a wife named Maya, who posted yoga photos on Instagram. He looked exactly like what he was, a privileged pretty boy who'd never faced real consequences for anything. That was about to change. By noon, I had a plan. Not some half-baked scheme fueled by anger, but a methodical strategy designed to expose the truth and make them both pay for their betrayal. I've learned that the best revenge isn't violence. It's watching your enemies destroy themselves. I called my old Delta teammate Tommy Sanders, who now owns a bar called the Hound's Tooth in the Warehouse District. Tommy has connections throughout the city and a talent for acquiring information that doesn't officially exist. "Jack Mason," Tommy's voice boomed through the phone. "What's the occasion?" "I need a favor, the kind that requires discretion. Say no more. Meet me at the bar tonight. We'll talk." The Hound's Tooth sits between a tire shop and a pawn store, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and everybody minds their own business. Tommy had decorated it with military memorabilia and kept the beer cold and the conversation honest. I arrived at 8 o'clock and found Tommy behind the bar, polishing glasses with hands that could crush a man's windpipe. He looked up when I walked in, and his expression told me he already knew this wasn't a social call. "Rough day?" he asked, pouring me a whiskey. "My wife is cheating on me." Tommy nodded like he'd been expecting this. "The lawyer? You knew?" "I suspected. She came in here 3 weeks ago with some suit. Thought they were being discreet in the back booth." Tommy shook his head. "Sorry, brother. Should have called you." "Don't be. I needed to figure it out myself." I drank the whiskey and felt it burn away some of my anger. Now I need to figure out what to do about it. "What kind of help are you looking for?" "Information, background checks, maybe some surveillance equipment." Tommy smiled, and I remembered why enemy combatants used to surrender when they saw that expression. "Consider it done. But Jack, be careful. Revenge has a way of eating a man alive." "I'm not looking for revenge," I said. "I'm looking for justice." The next morning, I followed Rachel to work from a distance, using skills I'd honed in places where mistakes got you eliminated. She parked in the executive garage and took the elevator to the 32nd floor, where Hartwell, Knox, and Associates occupied half the building. I'd done my homework on the law firm. Founded in 1987, they specialized in corporate acquisitions and had a reputation for aggressive tactics. Derek Holt had made partner 5 years ago and was considered the firm's rising star. He was also married to Maya Sinclair Holt, daughter of a federal judge. Perfect. The higher they climb, the harder they fall. I spent the day conducting surveillance from a coffee shop across the street. At 12:30, Rachel and Derek left the building together and walked to an upscale restaurant 3 blocks away. They sat at a corner table, and even from across the street, their body language screamed intimacy. Derek touched her hand. Rachel laughed at something he said and leaned closer. They looked like lovers, not colleagues discussing a case. I took photos with a telephoto lens, documenting their public displays of affection. In divorce court, these images would be worth their weight in gold. At 2:15, they returned to the office building. Derek's hand briefly touched the small of Rachel's back as they entered the elevator. Another photo for my collection. My phone rang. Sam's number. "Jack, I need your help." His voice was tight with panic. "Emma's missing." The coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the sidewalk. "What do you mean, missing?" "She was supposed to walk home from school. Never showed up. I've called everyone, checked everywhere. The police said I have to wait 24 hours before they'll treat it as an abduction." "I'm on my way." I forgot about Rachel and Derek. My niece needed me, and everything else could wait. Sam lived in a modest ranch house 15 minutes from Emma's elementary school. I found him pacing in his living room, running his hands through his hair and muttering to himself. "Tell me exactly what happened," I said. "School ended at 3:15. Emma always walks the same route home. Takes her about 20 minutes. When she wasn't here by 4 o'clock, I drove to the school. Her teacher said she left with the other kids." "Did you check with her friends?" "All of them. Nobody saw her after school ended." Sam's voice cracked. "Jack, what if someone took her?" I put my hand on his shoulder. "We're going to find her. But I need you to stay calm and think clearly." We retraced Emma's route from school, asking neighbors if they'd seen anything unusual. Mrs. Patterson, who lived 2 blocks from the school, remembered seeing Emma talking to a woman in a white sedan around 3:30. "The woman showed Emma something on her phone," Mrs. Patterson said. "Then Emma got in the car. Someone had lured my niece into a vehicle using a ruse. This wasn't a random crime, it was planned." We returned to Sam's house, and I was about to call the police when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Answer it," I said. "Put it on speaker." Sam's hands shook as he accepted the call. "Hello?" "Samuel Mason." The voice was electronically distorted. "We have your daughter. Please don't hurt her. I'll do anything." "Shut up and listen. We want $5 million, cash. You have 48 hours. "I don't have that kind of money." "Then find it, or Emma comes home in pieces." The line went silent. Sam collapsed into a chair, his face white with terror. $5 million. I don't even have 5,000 in my bank account. I was already moving, checking the locks on Sam's doors and windows. Pack a bag. You're staying at my house tonight. Jack, we have to call the police. We will. But first, we're going to find Emma ourselves. I pulled out my phone and called Tommy. Emergency meeting. Bring everything you've got on surveillance and tracking. On my way. While we waited for Tommy, I explained my plan to Sam. The kidnappers had made two critical mistakes. They'd targeted the niece of a former Delta Force operator, and they'd given us 48 hours to respond. That was 47 hours and 55 minutes more than I needed. Tommy arrived with a duffel bag full of equipment that definitely wasn't available at Best Buy. GPS trackers, listening devices, signal interceptors, and other toys left over from our military days. The call came from a burner phone, Tommy said, connecting his laptop to Sam's landline. But I got a rough location based on cell tower triangulation. Warehouse district, about 2 miles from here. How many warehouses in that area? Dozens. But most are abandoned or barely used, perfect for hiding someone. I studied the map Tommy had pulled up on his laptop. The warehouse district was a maze of industrial buildings, railroad tracks, and empty lots. Plenty of places to hide, but also plenty of places for me to hunt. Sam, I need you to stay here with Tommy. Monitor communications in case they call again. Where are you going? To get Emma back. I loaded my gear into my truck. Night vision goggles, tactical vest, zip ties, and a Glock 19 that I'd carried through 3 combat deployments. I wasn't planning to eliminate anyone, but I wanted the option available. The warehouse district looked like a post-apocalyptic wasteland after dark. Broken streetlights, cracked pavement, and buildings that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. I parked 6 blocks away and approached on foot, moving through shadows like a ghost. The first warehouse was empty except for rats and broken glass. The second contained homeless camps, but no signs of kidnappers. The third warehouse had fresh tire tracks in the dirt outside. Bingo. I circled the building, identifying entry points and escape routes. 2 guards outside, both armed with pistols but lacking military training. They smoked cigarettes and talked loudly, destroying their night vision and announcing their positions. Amateurs. I slipped inside through a broken window on the north side and found myself in a maze of shipping containers and rusted machinery. Voices echoed from the far end of the building. Told you this was a bad idea. Kidnapping a kid? That's federal time. Relax. Her uncle's got money from his security business. He'll pay. What if he calls the cops? Then we disappear, and the kid disappears too. I moved closer, using the containers for cover. 3 men total, all armed. Emma sat in a chair near the center of the warehouse, her hands zip-tied behind her back. She looked scared but unharmed. Time to end this. I disabled the first guard with a sleeper hold, catching his body before it hit the ground. The second guard turned at the sound of my footsteps and reached for his weapon. I hit him in the solar plexus, doubling him over, then delivered an uppercut that dropped him unconscious. The third man, the apparent leader, spun toward me with his gun drawn. Don't move, or the kid dies. Wrong choice, I said, and threw my tactical knife. The blade buried itself in his shooting hand, and he screamed as his pistol clattered across the concrete floor. I was on him before he could recover, zip-tying his hands behind his back. Uncle Jack! Emma's voice was small but strong. I cut her restraints and pulled her into a hug. You're safe now, sweetheart. Let's go home. We were back at Sam's house within an hour. Emma was shaken but unharmed, and Sam cried when he saw her walk through the door. I called the police and gave them the warehouse location, but I made sure Emma and I were long gone before they arrived. The kidnappers would wake up zip-tied and surrounded by cops. They'd face federal charges for kidnapping, and I'd made sure they understood that any retaliation would result in a very unpleasant visit from me. How did you find me so fast? Emma asked, as Sam tucked her into bed. Your uncle is very good at finding people, Sam said, looking at me with something like awe. After Emma fell asleep, Sam and I sat in his kitchen drinking beer and decompressing from the night's events. I can't thank you enough, Sam said. She's family. You don't thank family for doing what's right. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Working late again, don't wait up. I showed the message to Sam. Speaking of family problems. Trouble at home? Rachel's having an affair with her business partner. I found out yesterday. Sam whistled softly. Jesus, Jack, when it rains, it pours. Actually, this might work out perfectly. While I was playing hero tonight, Rachel was probably at Derek's penthouse. Time to gather some evidence. I drove across town to Derek's building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that screamed new money. Rachel's car was in the parking garage, confirming my suspicions. I had the building's security codes, a perk of running a security consulting business, and I used them to access the service elevator. Derek's penthouse occupied the entire top floor, and the view of the city was spectacular. So was the view through his bedroom window. Rachel and Derek were so busy with each other that they never noticed the telephoto lens capturing their activities. I took dozens of photos, documenting their affair in explicit detail. Evidence for the divorce proceedings. Check. By the time I got home, it was nearly dawn. Rachel's car wasn't in the driveway, which meant she was still at Derek's place. Perfect. I had work to do. I spent the morning researching Derek's wife, Maya, and discovered something interesting. She was scheduled to attend a charity luncheon this afternoon at the Riverside Country Club. Derek would be there too, playing the role of devoted husband while his wife smiled for the cameras. Time to plant some seeds of doubt. Maya Sinclair Holt was everything Rachel wasn't: elegant, refined, and genuinely kind to the country club staff. I watched her from across the dining room as she chatted with other wives and posed for society photographers. She had no idea her husband was cheating on her with my wife. I approached her table during a lull in the conversation, carrying an envelope that would change her life forever. Mrs. Sinclair Holt, my name is Jack Mason. I'm a private investigator, and I have some information you need to see. Her smile faltered. I'm sorry, what is this about? Your husband's extramarital activities? Perhaps we could speak privately? Maya's face went pale, but she maintained her composure. Excuse me, ladies. I'll be right back. We found a quiet corner near the bar, and I handed her the envelope. I'm truly sorry to be the bearer of bad news, ma'am, but you deserve to know the truth. Maya opened the envelope with trembling hands and gasped when she saw the photographs. Derek and Rachel entering his penthouse. Derek and Rachel at lunch. Derek and Rachel in his bedroom, captured through the window with perfect clarity. Oh my God. Her voice was barely a whisper. How long has this been going on? At least 3 months based on my investigation. Probably longer. Tears ran down Maya's cheeks, but her expression hardened with each photograph she examined. Who hired you to investigate my husband? Nobody hired me, ma'am. The woman in these photos is my wife. I thought you had a right to know what your husband was doing behind your back. Maya studied my face, searching for deception and finding only grim honesty. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just believe that when someone breaks their marriage vows, their spouse deserves to know the truth. And what are you planning to do about your wife? That's between Rachel and me. But I thought you might want to have a conversation with Derek before he comes home tonight. Maya closed the envelope and straightened her shoulders. Thank you, Mr. Mason. I won't forget this kindness. I left the country club feeling like I'd lit the first fuse in a chain of explosives. Maya seemed like the type of woman who wouldn't take betrayal lying down, especially from a husband who'd made her look like a fool in front of their social circle. My phone rang as I drove home. Tommy's number. We've got a problem, he said. Rachel and Derek are asking questions about you. Specifically, they want to know if you have any military training. What kind of questions? Derek called a private investigator named Max Brennan, asked him to dig up dirt on you. Brennan's a bottom feeder, but he's thorough. This was an interesting development. Rachel and Derek were going on the offensive, which meant they suspected I knew about their affair. They were trying to gather ammunition for a custody battle or divorce proceedings. Too bad for them, I'd already won the intelligence war. Let them dig, I said. My military record is classified, and my business dealings are clean. They won't find anything useful. What about the warehouse thing last night? If they connect you to those kidnappers, they can't. I was never officially there. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for the next phase of my plan. Rachel would come home eventually, and when she did, I'd be ready for her. She walked through the front door at 7 o'clock, looking guilty and defensive. Her hair was messed up, and she'd reapplied her lipstick recently. "Sorry I'm so late," she said, not meeting my eyes. "The Morrison case is consuming my life." "How's Derek handling the pressure?" Rachel froze. "What do you mean?" "You mentioned he's the lead partner on the case. Must be stressful for him." "Oh, yes, very stressful. We're both exhausted." I nodded sympathetically. "Maybe you should take a vacation when this case is over. Get away from the office for a while." "That's a good idea. Maybe Derek and maybe I could take some time off." "Rachel." I said her name quietly, and she finally looked at me. "We need to talk." "About what?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photographs I'd taken outside Derek's building. Rachel and Derek kissing in the parking garage, her hands tangled in his hair. The color drained from Rachel's face. "Jack, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because this looks pretty clear to me." Rachel's mask of innocence slipped, replaced by the cold calculation I'd fallen in love with 22 years ago. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. The question is, what do we do about it?" "What do you want?" "I want my wife back. But she's been replaced by someone I don't recognize." Rachel sat down across from me, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said. "Derek and I were working late, and one thing led to another. It was just supposed to be once. But it wasn't. No, it wasn't." Rachel looked at her hands. "I'm sorry, Jack. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every time you lied to my face, every time you came home smelling like another man, every time you made me feel like I was going crazy for suspecting the truth. What do you want me to do? End it with Derek? Quit my job?" I studied my wife's face and realized I didn't love her anymore. The betrayal had eliminated something fundamental between us, and no amount of apologies could bring it back to life. "I want you to pack your things and leave," I said. "Tonight. Jack, please. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you want." "It's too late for that." Rachel's expression hardened. "Fine, but don't think this is over. I know about your little rescue mission last night. Emma's kidnapping wasn't random, was it? Someone hired those men to take her, and you handled it yourself instead of calling the police." "What are you talking about?" "Derek has connections throughout the city. He heard about 3 men found zip-tied in a warehouse, all claiming they were attacked by a military-trained assailant, the same night your niece went missing. You're fishing. Am I? Because if the police start investigating Emma's kidnapping, they might discover that her uncle took the law into his own hands. Assault, battery, vigilante justice. That's prison time, Jack." I realized what was happening. Rachel and Derek had orchestrated Emma's kidnapping to distract me from their affair and create leverage for divorce proceedings. They'd hired criminals to terrorize an 8-year-old girl for their own selfish purposes. The rage that filled me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. "You used my niece as a pawn in your sick game?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. You and Derek hired those men to kidnap Emma. You thought it would keep me busy while you covered your tracks." Rachel's silence was all the confirmation I needed. "Get out," I said. "Get out of my house before I do something we'll both regret." This isn't over, Jack. Derek has resources you can't imagine. We'll destroy you in court. We'll see about that. Rachel packed a suitcase and left without another word. I watched her taillights disappear down the street and felt something break inside my chest. 22 years of marriage ended by greed and betrayal. My phone rang. Maya Sinclair Holt. Mr. Mason? I confronted Derek about the photographs. He denied everything at first, but I pressed him for details. He finally admitted to the affair. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Don't be. You did me a favor. Maya's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Derek asked for forgiveness, begged me not to leave him, said it was just a meaningless fling. What did you tell him? I told him to pack his bags. My father is a federal judge, and my brother is a prosecutor. Derek's career is about to become very complicated. I smiled for the first time in days. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Mason, Derek mentioned something about your niece being kidnapped last night. He seemed to know more details than he should have. What kind of details? Specific information about the ransom demand and the location where she was found, almost like he was involved somehow. The pieces clicked into place. Rachel and Derek had planned Emma's kidnapping as a distraction, but they'd underestimated my ability to resolve the situation quickly. Now Derek was panicking, sharing information he shouldn't have known. Mrs. Sinclair Holt, would you be willing to make a statement to the police about Derek's knowledge of the kidnapping? Absolutely. My daughter is the same age as your niece. Anyone who would terrorize a child deserves to face justice. After Maya hung up, I called Detective Sarah Williams, a contact from my security consulting work. Sarah, I need to report a conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Jack? What's going on? I explained the situation. Emma's abduction, the ransom demand, and Derek's suspicious knowledge of details that hadn't been released to the public. That's a serious accusation, Sarah said. Do you have evidence? I have witness testimony from Derek's wife and phone records that should show communication between Derek and the kidnappers. Plus, the kidnappers themselves might be willing to make a deal if they're facing federal charges. I'll open an investigation. Can you come in tomorrow morning to make a formal statement? I'll be there. The next morning, I sat in Detective Williams' office and laid out the evidence against Derek and Rachel. Phone records, witness statements, and a timeline that connected Derek to the kidnapping conspiracy. This is circumstantial, Sarah said, reviewing my documentation. But it's compelling. We'll bring Derek in for questioning. What about Rachel? If she was involved, we'll find evidence, but right now, Derek is our primary suspect. I left the police station feeling cautiously optimistic. Derek's world was about to collapse, and Rachel would be caught in the debris. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. Emergency. Meet me at the bar. Rachel and Derek are planning something. I drove to the Hound's Tooth and found Tommy waiting with a grim expression and a laptop full of intercepted communications. They're planning to frame you, Tommy said without preamble. Derek hired Max Brennan to plant evidence in your house. They want to make it look like you've been stalking Rachel and threatening Derek. What kind of evidence? Photos, threatening letters, maybe even weapons. Brennan specializes in manufacturing domestic violence cases for divorce proceedings. I felt the walls closing in around me. Rachel and Derek were desperate, and desperate people make dangerous choices. When is this supposed to happen? Tonight, while you're at Emma's soccer game. They know your schedule. Emma's soccer game. I'd promised to attend, and Sam was counting on me to be there. But if I left my house unprotected, Rachel and Derek would plant evidence that could send me to prison. Can you handle surveillance at my house? I asked Tommy. Already on it. I've got cameras and motion sensors covering every entrance. If Brennan shows up, we'll have him on video. Good. I'm not missing Emma's game because of Rachel's lies. The soccer game was exactly what I needed. 90 minutes of innocent childhood competition that reminded me why family matters more than revenge. Emma scored 2 goals and ran to the sideline to hug me after each one. "Did you see that, Uncle Jack? Did you see me kick the ball?" "I saw it, sweetheart. You're getting better every game." Sam stood beside me, watching his daughter with pride and gratitude. "She's been talking about you nonstop since the other night. You're her hero. She's a tough kid. Takes after her father." "Jack, I need to ask you something. The men who took Emma, do you think they'll come back?" I thought about Derek sitting in a police interrogation room, probably confessing everything to save his own skin. "No, they won't be bothering anyone ever again." My phone vibrated with a text from Tommy. "Brennan just left your house. We got everything on video." Perfect. Now I had evidence of Derek's conspiracy to frame me, which would strengthen the kidnapping case against him. After the game, I drove Emma and Sam home, then headed to the Hound's Tooth to review Tommy's surveillance footage. The video showed Max Brennan entering my house through the back door and planting evidence in my bedroom and office. "What did he plant?" I asked. "Photos of Rachel, threatening letters supposedly written by you, and a burner phone with text messages to Derek. Classic domestic violence setup." "Did you stop him?" Tommy grinned. I let him finish, then I followed him home and retrieved copies of everything he planted. Now we have evidence of evidence tampering, which is a felony. I called Detective Williams and arranged to meet her at my house. When she arrived with a search warrant, I was waiting with Tommy's surveillance footage and copies of the planted evidence. "This is highly unusual," Sarah said, watching Brennan on video. "You're telling me you knew they were going to plant evidence, and you let them do it?" "I wanted to catch them in the act. Now you have video proof of a conspiracy to obstruct justice." Sarah shook her head but smiled. "You're either very smart or very lucky." "Little bit of both." The search of my house proceeded exactly as Derek and Rachel had planned, except that I was present with my attorney and Sarah knew the evidence was fabricated. When officers discovered the planted materials, Sarah arrested Max Brennan on charges of evidence tampering and conspiracy. Brennan lasted exactly 30 minutes in custody before he confessed everything. Derek had paid him $50,000 to frame me for domestic violence and stalking. Rachel had provided details about my daily routine and access to my house. By midnight, both Derek and Rachel were under arrest. Derek was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. Rachel faced charges for conspiracy and accessory after the fact. Both were denied bail due to flight risk. I stood in my kitchen at 2 a.m., drinking coffee and processing the events of the past week. 7 days ago, I'd been a happily married man whose biggest worry was a leaky faucet. Now I was divorced, my wife was in jail, and I'd rescued my niece from kidnappers. Life comes at you fast sometimes. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice. "This is Maya Sinclair Holt. I wanted to thank you again for opening my eyes about Derek." "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. I've filed for divorce and frozen all our joint accounts. Derek's legal troubles are just beginning." "I'm sorry it had to end this way." "Don't be. I'd rather know the truth than live a lie." Maya paused. "There's something else. Derek tried to call me from jail tonight. He wanted me to post bail and hire him an attorney." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to call his girlfriend. Then I hung up." I laughed, despite everything. "You're tougher than you look, Mrs. Sinclair Holt." "Maya. And yes, I am. Derek is about to discover exactly how tough." The trial began 6 months later, and it was everything I'd hoped for. Derek and Rachel, once powerful and arrogant, now sat at separate defense tables looking haggard and defeated. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Phone records connected Derek to the kidnappers. Maya's testimony established Derek's guilty knowledge of the crime. Tommy's surveillance footage showed Max Brennan planting evidence at Derek's direction. The kidnappers themselves testified that Derek had hired them through intermediaries. Rachel's defense attorney tried to argue that she was an unwitting pawn in Derek's scheme, but the evidence painted a different picture. She'd provided Derek with information about my schedule and Emma's routine. She'd helped plan the evidence planting. She'd been a willing participant in every aspect of the conspiracy. I testified on the third day of the trial, describing Emma's kidnapping and my investigation into the affair. The jury listened intently as I explained how Derek and Rachel had used an 8-year-old girl as a weapon in their selfish game. "Mr. Mason," the prosecutor asked, "what impact has this experience had on your family?" "My niece still has nightmares about being kidnapped. My brother installed a security system and doesn't let Emma walk to school anymore. 22 years of marriage ended because my wife chose greed over loyalty. The impact has been devastating." Derek's attorney tried to paint me as a vigilante who'd taken the law into his own hands, but the jury wasn't buying it. I'd rescued my niece and exposed a criminal conspiracy. In their eyes, I was the hero of this story. The verdict came back after 4 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Derek received 15 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit kidnapping and evidence tampering. Rachel got 8 years for her role in the conspiracy. Max Brennan received 5 years for evidence tampering and obstruction of justice. I watched them led away in handcuffs and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Outside the courthouse, Maya approached me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. You don't need to thank me. You found the strength to leave Derek on your own." "No, I didn't. You gave me the push I needed to demand the truth." Maya smiled. "I'm starting a new life, and it feels wonderful." "What will you do now?" "I'm moving back to Boston to be closer to my family. Maybe I'll go back to school, finish the degree I abandoned when I married Derek." Maya paused. "What about you?" "I'm thinking about expanding my security business, maybe specializing in domestic investigations. Seems like there's a need for honest private investigators." "There is, and if you ever need a reference, you know where to find me." I watched Maya walk away, her head held high and her future bright with possibility. She'd survived betrayal and emerged stronger, just like I had. Sam and Emma were waiting for me by my truck, both wearing huge smiles. "Uncle Jack!" Emma ran to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Did the bad people go to jail?" "Yes, sweetheart. They're going to jail for a very long time." "Good. They were mean to me. They'll never be mean to you again." Sam shook my hand, his eyes bright with gratitude and pride. "You did it, brother. You got justice for all of us. We got justice. This was a family effort." As we drove home, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. Marriage is built on trust, and when that trust is broken, the relationship dies. Family is the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. Justice isn't always swift, but it's worth waiting for. Rachel and Derek had thought they were smarter than everyone else. They'd believed their money and connections made them untouchable. They'd underestimated the power of truth and the determination of a man protecting his family. Now they were learning that actions have consequences, even for people who think they're above the law. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. "Celebration drinks at the bar tonight. First round's on me." I texted back, "I'll be there." But first, I had a promise to keep. Emma's soccer team was playing in the championship game next weekend, and I'd promised to be there to cheer her on. Some things are more important than revenge. Some things are more valuable than justice. Family is everything. I pulled into my driveway and looked at the house I'd shared with Rachel for 15 years. It felt different now, cleaner somehow. The lies and betrayal had been scrubbed away, leaving only truth and possibility. Inside, I found a letter that had been slipped under my door. My name was written on the envelope in unfamiliar handwriting. I opened it and read, "Mr. Mason, you don't know me, but my husband has been cheating on me with his secretary. I heard about your case in the news, and I was wondering if you might be willing to help me gather evidence for my divorce proceedings. I can pay your standard rates. Please call me if you're interested. Sincerely, Jennifer Walsh. I smiled and reached for my phone. Looks like my new career in domestic investigations was about to begin. Justice served, family protected, and a new purpose in life. Sometimes the best revenge is living well and helping others do the same.